Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be hitting off the Leviathan box set with the Apothecary Biologis. Now I have assembled him up to the point that he would get in the way of painting. So basically his body is fully assembled, his left arm isn't with that's holding the giant box, and his pre-made base is attached to the base. I'll never show you how I paint it, but I will show what it looks like in the end. And here are all the paints that I use throughout this thing. Some I show, some I never see, but it's just like stuff in the background or things like that. Some small changes, which I'll mention at the end, maybe. And then finally, I prime the whole thing with a car primer. I prefer gray, but all I have is black currently, because that's the only one I can find that works on plastic. Car primer is good simply because it can work at all times throughout the year in all types of humidity. Alright, Eshin Gray and Gray Sear for pre-coating. Basically, I take an airbrush and spray Eshin Gray from the bottom and then Gray Sear from the top to create light and dark shadows. Now this is actually just going to be the color of the armor, or at least the base layer. White is terrible with Games Workshop's paints, and so I use off-whites that will actually work. Unfortunately, the Gray Sear comes out just a little bit grainy. Not as much as white, but a little too grainy for my tastes. And now with Dawnstone, I then take this and a very thin, fine brush, and I just paint all the, how do I put this? Crevices, indents, stuff like that to create the appearance of like shadows or like in armor depth. I'm basically painting the shadows directly, where all the plates meet. Now, with White Scar White and a little bit of Lamian Medium mixed in, we can turn this trash white paint into something usable. And so, like, white paint, if you buy from Games Workshop, you know the white paint is just bad. It's very cloudy, grainy. So I have to mix in a little bit of Lamian Medium, and it turns it into something that's usable. And I'm able to paint lines, and so basically I highlight all the edges and lines of the bodies and armor. And yeah. Alright, and so the model's too grainy, so I'm going to try to fix it. So I'm going to take some Gray Sear and mix Lamian Medium into it and turn it into sort of, well, a wash, sort of. And I'm going to apply this on major flat planes and stuff to eliminate the graininess and to solidify the color in places. Alright, with Lamian Medium, Gray Sear, and White Scar White, I'm going to do the same thing I did in the previous one. So basically, I'm taking the Lamian Medium Gray Sear mix, and I'm adding a bit of White Scar White to brighten it, and I'm going to apply this on the flat planes on the most raised areas, essentially. I don't want it to be pure white, because I still want the highlights to show through. But this is basically like upper shoulders, top of his head, helmet, parts of his backpack and stuff. The ceramite should be the brightest there. And this is just an easy way of doing it with white. I just wish GW made a better white paint. I know the reason why is that they have to mix alcohol in it, apparently, in order to make the paint workable, and they can't do that because they sell it to kids. But alright, with Black Templar contrast paint, we're just going to paint the joints of his armor and stuff. Alright, with Corvus Black, Eshin Grey, and Dawnstone, we're going to paint his gun and the light bulb thingy that he has there, and the chainsaw blade that he has on his back mandible arms? I don't know. Alright, so basically, base layer of Corvus Black, then I did a little mix of Corvus Black and Eshin Grey, but that was too dark. I basically tried to highlight it with it, but it didn't really pan out, so you can skip that step. Then I basically just do Eshin Grey on the edges of everything, and actually no, the flat planes of a lot. Then I did a sort of a one-to-one mix of Eshin Grey and Dawnstone and highlighted all the edges. And for the gun, I kind of wanted to try painting within the case, so like scratches or lines going through, stuff like that. Maybe I overdid it a little bit here and there. And then finally with a fine layer of Dawnstone on the most raised edges and stuff, and thin scratch through. I think I know how I want to do it from now on, the scratches, but this was a good experiment. Alright, with Corn Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, Wild Rider Red, and Troll Slayer Orange, I'm going to paint a lot of red things. So I'm going to go in order. So what you'll see in the video is me painting one section at a time in a group, and then moving on to the next section. So first starting off with the cape. Corn Red base, a 50-50 Corn Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, painting most of it. Only the deepest, darkest recesses have Corn Red. Then pure Evil Sun Scarlet, painting 90% of what I just did. Then sort of a one-to-one-ish mix of Evil Suns and Wild Rider Red, painting the more raised areas and stuff, and feathering it in, like feathery motion, to help blend and stuff. Then pure Wild Rider Red on the most raised areas and feathering it in. And then a few thin lines of Troll Slayer Orange on some parts just to create thin lines. And yeah, and then moving on, his gun has the symbol as well. So basically of Corn Red, then I cover all of it with Evil Sun Scarlet. Then with Wild Rider Red, essentially what I do is, it's a bit hard to describe, but like I paint half of the so it's a bunch of like squares essentially, and so I paint half of the squares or an angle with the color, and so part of it's darker, part of it will be lighter. And then I do Troll Slayer Orange as a tiny drop on like where the arms or like the crosses, I don't know how to describe it, meet essentially for a light point. Okay, moving on from that, the little lights he has. Essentially what's going to happen is alright, so Corn Red base, and then I fill it all in with Evil Sun Scarlet, but the Corn Red is still visible on the top right. Then I fill all the Evil Suns with Wild Rider Red, except a little bit towards the top right, and then Troll Slayer Orange on the very bottom left, like a dot. And then his head and eyes. Basically they're the same thing as the lens and the symbol on his gun, but his eyes, Corn Red, fill it in with Evil Suns, Wild Rider Red on the top the top back part of his eye, and then Troll Slayer Orange, like a dot of it towards the back. You might have to put in a little Corn Red towards the front again if you accidentally spilled it in too much, because I mean it's hard to do. I mean, yeah, it's a very tiny thing, so. Alright, with Mournfang Brown, Adrax Earthshade, and XV88, I painted the leather he has. So I wanted to sort of push myself a little bit and try something. So, first off, started with a layer of Mournfang Brown, covered it with Adrax Earthshade. Then I refilled everything except the deepest, darkest recesses with Mournfang Brown. Then I added another layer of Adrax Earthshade, and then this time I re-highlighted again with Mournfang Brown. But this time, I painted like 80 to 90% of the leather with this. Painted the edges, I feathered in on some areas to transition from the darkest to light, filled in areas of the center and stuff, painted some somewhat squiggly lines here and there to add some wear and tear, as best I could figure. And then with some pure XV88, I painted thin lines throughout the squiggles and stuff on the most raised areas. Alright, Corvus Black and Eshin Grey. He has these little black tubes that are going to this control panel on his back. So Corvus Black, paint them all, Eshin Grey on the top areas. Just a simple small thing. Alright, with Black Templar Contrast, Evil Sun Scarlet, Troll Slayer Orange, Bestigor Flesh, Everland Sunset, Cabalite Green, and Cyberite Green, we're going to be painting buttons. Alright, so he has, like, on his left arm, a control panel, on his back, like this little button thingy. So we're going to fill all the buttons in with Black Templar Contrast to sort of make the buttons stand out more. Then, selectively, there'll be red buttons, we fill them in with Evil Sun Scarlet, and then highlight them with just a drop of Troll Slayer Orange, as best we can. Then there'll be yellow buttons, which we will fill in with Bestigor Flesh, and then highlight them in with Everland Sunset. And then with these glass screens, we're going to fill them in with Cabalite Green, and then fill them in with paint lines of Cyberite Green along the edges of the screen, and some scratches through it, as best as I can figure. And with Bestigor Flesh and Everland Sunset, I'm going to attempt to paint that light. So basically with Bestigor Flesh, paint the glass of the light, then with a 1-to-1 of Bestigor and Everland, fill 90% of that in, and then with Everland, paint towards the center the color. I think I'm going to stop trying to do this. I can never seem to replicate this light color correctly, so this is probably my last attempt of trying to do yellow light. It's probably going to be green or red from now on. Alright, with Dawnstone, Cyberite Green, or Cabalite Green and Cyberite Green and Gracier, we're going to paint... Actually, I don't use the Gracier. We're going to paint these bottles he has on his side. Alright, so basically these vial thingies, paint all Dawnstone as a base layer, and then what I'm going to do is going to take Cabalite Green, and I'm going to imagine it's like there's a liquid inside, and so essentially I paint what I think is the water level. Tried to have them somewhat on the base to get a good idea of what that is, and then I paint a thin line of Cyberite Green between the two. And you have to go back and maybe do some straight lines with Dawnstone and the colors again to get it right. And then I looked and it was like, okay, this is good enough. And yeah, and I was done. Alright, with Emperor's Children and Guilliman Flesh, we're going to paint the Purity Seal, the wax part. So, base layer of Emperor's Children, dry it, then Guilliman Flesh inside it, then dry it, and then re-highlight with Emperor's Children, done. You can repeat this as many times as you want for more transition. Alright, with Dawnstone and Ulthuan Grey Air, which is a bright air brush use paint that I completely forgot about existed until I brought it up to this step. So screw me for the beginning pre-coating. So basically this is what I paint the Purity Seal with. So Dawnstone base, then Ulthuan Grey. It's a little too stark for my taste, so probably could have done Dawnstone, then a mix of Dawnstone and Ulthuan Grey, and then a highlight of Ulthuan Grey. But I make up for it in the next step. Alright, so like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I spent $35 going through Michael's and I bought a bunch of these different colored micro pens. I have a black 0.25mm one, so I bought a bunch of these, which are unfortunately 0.5, so they're thicker. But I was like, you know what, this could be easy for doing details and stuff. So I take a red one, a blackish one, maybe some blue here and there, and I use it and I just draw on the Purity Seal. And it works really well. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Calidor Sky, and Hoeth Blue, this might be a good sign that I need to go to GW and refresh my blue paints, which I almost never use because I'm going to be painting a lot of Ultramarine soon. So basically, his shoulder pad, I'm painting him as Ultramarine, so Cantor Blue is a base, then 1-to-1 Cantor and Calidor Sky, filling in like 90% of the center, only the edges are still Cantor. Then pure Calidor Sky on the center inside, but like 3/4 of the way up. And then with a mix of Calidor Sky and Hoeth Blue, like halfway up the shoulder pad, and sort of feathering it in a little bit so that there's a little bit of a blend-ish. Because this would be easier to do if I was airbrushing, but it's too late to airbrush this now. So, here we are. Alright, we're going to use Microset. This is really good for decals because it softens them really well. So watch me do like 3 minutes of work struggling to get this on there properly. So basically, you take the decal, you put the Microset on a brush, and you rub it into the decal in there. It comes off the decal thingy, and then you put it onto the part you want the decal. You throw on more of this Microset, and it basically softens and helps it squish and conform to the dimensions of the wherever you want to put it on. And this took a while. So there was another decal I did, but I didn't bother to show that. It took forever to do this one right. Alright, like 90% of the non-metals are done, so with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, we then seal everything. So with the decals, they're a little bit shiny, so you're going to have to go over them maybe twice or so. The leather that they have there for the gun holsters and stuff, you're going to have to go over as well to help with all the Adrex Earthshade, because it's so shiny. Alright, with Fulgurite Copper, Castellax Bronze, Seraph Zephia, and Sycorax Bronze, I'm going to paint the gold. Yeah, bronze, copper, painting gold. So basically I start off with Fulgurite Copper as a base layer on the chest and the wings. Then with a thin brush, Castellax Bronze, I paint directly into the recesses. Strange thing, with his right shoulder pad, so he has 2 pairs of wings. The wings that are towards the top are kind of flat, and you sort of have to create your own depth, but the wings that are towards the bottom perfectly are like molded with proper depth and stuff, so that was easy. So I don't know what the crap was happening with this model. Then I fill it in with Seraph Zephia to sort of blend the colors together a little bit so that the transition's better. Then I do overbrushing with Fulgurite Copper along the chest to bring the shine back. With the wings on his shoulder, I had to paint with a thin brush the thin lines of Fulgurite Copper again. It just looks fine. And then with Sycorax Bronze on the chest, overbrush lightly to bring out the shine. And then on his right shoulder pad thing, you just paint thin lines of Sycorax on the most raised details or edges and on each wing feather. And that's it. And then with Iron Warriors, this is the only metal paint I have that's the darkest, and I paint all the metal with it. And there's a lot, like the cables, the mechondrites, the cables on his legs, the vial he's carrying. Yeah. Alright, with Nuln Oil and Duraluminum, which is just a very bright, solid silver color, we're going to finish off all the metal details. So basically, paint all the black metal I painted with Nuln Oil, because it's not dark enough, and this will create good shadows. Then with Duralumin, basically what I'm going to do is overbrush. And lightly and gently, carefully overbrush all over. Basically, I want a lot of places to still retain their darkness. I want the edges of the metal to be sharp, bright silver, and some into the recesses. So this is more of an artistic thing. I did have to go back with the Iron Warriors on some of the tubing or piping, whatever those things are, because that messed up a little bit here and there, but that was fine. And then with pure Duraluminum, I painted the I don't know, the vial he has like these silver things on it, so I just made sure that they were pure silver and not like scratched silver. And here's the base that I threw together. I have no memory of how I did this. I just did this in a few minutes and I can't recall how I did it. And then I assembled the model onto the base. Also, I applied a little bit of pigment powder on his feet to make it look like he's stepping and getting a little bit dirty there. And done. Alright, first one from the box. Now there's a few things I did after the fact. Like his light, if you see, is a different color. I just painted something bright. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like Dorn Yellow, because I was just like, it looked terrible, and it still doesn't look good in comparison. A few other things I did. I took gloss varnish and applied it to every single lens that there is. His eye lenses, the glass plates on his, I don't know what the heck he's carrying. The vials he has on the side, and his control panel thingies, stuff like that. I went back and did a few details here and there. Now, this is not a pure white apothecary, because Games Workshop make a proper white or something, or someone somewhere make a good white that I can get that comes out of an airbrush that doesn't look like I'm blasting sand everywhere. And so I have to use these off whites because they are more workable. I mean, I had to mix a bunch of Lamy and medium with the white color just to make it work. I might try that in an airbrush, actually. But yeah, and so, yeah, and here it is. So it's a good first try. Pushed myself on a few things. It looks pretty good. Yeah, if you want it, you can find it on eBay. Alright, moving on. I think I'm going to do a Tyrannid next, because I don't want to keep just doing Space Marine, Space Marine, Space Marine, because it's going to get a bit boring. I'm going to get bored painting blueberries all the time. So, alright, so like the video if you like the video, comment if you want to comment, share if you want to share it, and more to come when it happens.